Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another inspiring biography story where we not only learn about the life of amazing people, but also practice English listening. I'm so excited to share with you the life story Sir Isaac Newton. Imagine a world where the laws of nature were a mystery, where gravity and motion had no explanation, until one man came along and changed everything. That man was Sir Isaac Newton. From the apple falling on his head to the creation of groundbreaking theories, Newton's discoveries reshaped science forever. His work in physics, mathematics, and astronomy didn't just answer questions. It sparked a revolution that still drives modern science today. But how did one man unlock the mysteries of the universe? Stay tuned as we explore the incredible journey of Sir Isaac Newton, the genius who changed the way we see the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on this exciting adventure through history's most influential mind. Number 1. Birth and early life, 1643 to 1661. Isaac Newton was born on January 4th, 1643, Julian calendar, December to 25th, 1642, by the Gregorian calendar, in the small village of Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire, England. His father, also named Isaac Newton, had died 3 months before his birth, and his mother, Hannah Isco, remarried when he was just 3 years old, leaving him to be raised by his maternal grandmother. Newton was a delicate and lonely child, often spending his time in isolation, developing a deep curiosity about the world around him. Newton's early education began at the King's School in Grantham, where he was introduced to classical studies and mathematics. At the age of 12, his mother brought him back to Woolsthorpe, where he continued his education. As a young boy, he showed a remarkable ability for inventing mechanical devices and often engaged in experiments to understand how things worked. This inquisitive nature would later define much of his scientific career. In 1661, Newton enrolled at Trinity College, Cambridge, where he studied the works of renowned mathematicians and philosophers such as Euclid, Descartes, and Galileo. At Cambridge, he began to develop his own theories, initially in the areas of optics and mathematics, which would eventually revolutionize science. Number 2. Cambridge years and intellectual growth, 1661 to 1665. At Cambridge, Newton's intellectual development was largely self-driven. He was more interested in mathematics and physics than in the classical curriculum, which focused on subjects like logic, rhetoric, and philosophy. He studied the works of Galileo and Kepler, as well as the works of Descartes, and it was here that he began to form the foundations of his future scientific discoveries. Newton's most significant early work during his time at Cambridge was in the field of mathematics. He developed a deep interest in the study of geometry and algebra, and by 1665 he had created a version of what would later be known as calculus. Although his work on calculus would remain unpublished for many years, the foundation of the theory was laid during this period, based on his need to solve problems related to the motion of objects. However, in 1665, the plague struck Cambridge, and the university temporarily closed. Newton returned to Woolsthorpe for the next 2 years, during which he embarked on an intense period of solitary study. This was the time when Newton made some of his most profound discoveries, including his early work on optics and gravitation. Here are some of his major achievements. Number 1. Laws of motion and universal gravitation. Newton formulated the 3 laws of motion, which are fundamental to classical mechanics. He proposed the law of universal gravitation, which describes the force of gravity between two masses. Number 2. Mathematics. He co-developed calculus independently alongside Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a branch of mathematics essential for modern science and engineering. Number 3. Optics. Newton conducted groundbreaking experiments with light and optics, demonstrating that white light is composed of a spectrum of colors. Number 4. Philosophia Naturalis, Principia Mathematica. Commonly known as the Principia, this work laid the foundation for classical mechanics and presented his laws of motion and gravitation. Number 5. Other contributions. He designed the first practical reflecting telescope. He studied alchemy and theology, though these works were less scientific. Number 3. The Plague Years and Discoveries, 1665 to 1667. During his time in isolation, Newton made groundbreaking discoveries in mathematics, physics, and astronomy. In mathematics, he worked on the development of what he called the method of fluxions, which would later become the fundamental principles of calculus. This method allowed him to find the rates of change of variables, a key element in understanding motion and forces. In optics, Newton conducted a series of experiments with light. He used a prism to break light into its constituent colors, demonstrating that white light is a mixture of different colors. This experiment challenged the prevailing theory of light and color at the time, which was based on the work of the philosopher Aristotle. Newton's work in optics led to the publication of his first major book, Optics, which detailed his experiments with light and color. Perhaps his most famous achievement from this period was his work on gravity. Legend has it that Newton was inspired to formulate his theory of gravity after watching an apple fall from a tree at Woolsthorpe Manor. Although this story is likely apocryphal, it symbolizes the moment of insight that led to Newton's realization that the same force that caused an apple to fall to the ground also governed the motion of celestial bodies. This insight would form the foundation of his later work on the laws of motion and universal gravitation. Number 4. Return to Cambridge and rise to prominence, 1667 to 1671. In 1667, Newton returned to Cambridge, where he quickly rose to prominence within the scientific community. He was elected to a fellowship at Trinity College, where he continued his research on mathematics and physics. His work on optics, particularly his theory of light and color, was groundbreaking, and in 1671 he was invited to present his findings to the Royal Society, the leading scientific institution in England. In his presentation to the Royal Society, Newton demonstrated his new invention, the reflecting telescope. This device, which used a mirror rather than a lens to gather and focus light, allowed for much clearer images than the telescopes of the time. The invention of the reflecting telescope was a major contribution to the field of astronomy and helped cement Newton's reputation as one of the leading scientists of his time. In 1672, Newton's work on optics was published in the Philosophical Transactions, the journal of the Royal Society. His groundbreaking paper, titled A New Theory of Light and Colors, outlined his findings on the nature of light and color, and was widely regarded as a major achievement in the field of optics. Number 5. The Principia and the Laws of Motion. Tractati Severi 26 22 to 1687. Newton's most famous work, Philosophia Naturalis, Principia Mathematica, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, was published in 1687. This monumental work laid the foundation for classical mechanics and provided a unified framework for understanding the motion of objects, both on Earth and in the heavens. In the Principia, Newton outlined his 3 laws of motion, which describe the relationship between a body's motion and the forces acting upon it. First law, law of inertia. A body remains at rest or in uniform motion unless acted upon by an external force. Second law, F equals ma. The force acting on an object is equal to the mass of the object multiplied by its acceleration. Third law, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. In addition to the laws of motion, the Principia also introduced Newton's law of universal gravitation, which stated that every mass attracts every other mass with a force proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. This theory explained the motion of the planets and the phenomena of tides, and it provided a mathematical framework that could predict the motion of celestial bodies. Number 6. Conflict with Leibniz. Number 7. Later years and the Royal Mint, 1696 to 1705. In 1696, Newton was appointed Warden of the Royal Mint, a position that involved overseeing the production of coins and combating counterfeiters. Although it was a less glamorous role than his scientific work, Newton took his duties at the Mint very seriously. He worked tirelessly to reform the English currency and implement measures to stop the widespread practice of counterfeiting. His efforts were highly successful, and he was later promoted to Master of the Mint in 1700. During his time at the Mint, Newton largely withdrew from active scientific research, focusing instead on his administrative duties. However, he continued to write and correspond with other scientists, including some of the leading figures of the scientific revolution. In 1704, he published his work on optics, which further solidified his reputation as one of the leading scientists of his time. Number 8. Final Years and Legacy, 1705 to 1727. Newton's later years were marked by increasing recognition and honor. In 1705, Queen Anne knighted him for his contributions to science and public service, making him Sir Isaac Newton. He continued to receive various accolades, and in 1714 he became President of the Royal Society, a position he held until his death. Despite his professional success, Newton remained deeply introspective and consumed by his spiritual and alchemical interests. He spent much of his later years studying the Bible and attempting to decode its hidden meanings. He was also fascinated by alchemy, though he never publicly acknowledged these pursuits, which were considered unorthodox at the time. Number 9. Newton's enduring legacy. Newton's legacy continues to shape the world today. His laws of motion and universal gravitation provided the framework for classical mechanics, and his work in optics helped lay the foundation for modern physics. His contributions to mathematics, particularly the development of calculus, have had a profound impact on fields ranging from engineering to economics. Newton's scientific achievements transcended his time, and his work continues to inspire generations of scientists, mathematicians, and thinkers. His approach to science, which combined empirical observation with mathematical rigor, helped to define the scientific method and laid the foundation for modern scientific inquiry. Sir Isaac Newton was a towering figure in the history of science, whose work laid the groundwork for much of modern physics and mathematics. He is best known for his laws of motion and the law of universal gravitation, which revolutionized our understanding of the natural world. His development of calculus, along with his groundbreaking studies in optics, helped establish him as one of the most influential scientists of all time. Newton's curiosity, intellectual rigor, and relentless pursuit of knowledge shaped the scientific method and transformed multiple fields, including mathematics, astronomy, and physics. Despite facing personal conflicts and controversies, such as his dispute over the invention of calculus with Leibniz, his achievements remain foundational. Newton's later years were marked by public recognition, including his knighthood and leadership at the Royal Society. He died in 1727, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to inspire scientific discovery and innovation. If you found this story fascinating and want to explore more about the lives of visionaries who changed history, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more captivating content.